Okay, today we're going to work on chicken and dumplings. I've had a lot of people request that I demonstrate how to do this. This is super easy. And there's 2 or 3 ways that you can do chicken and dumplings. You can use a rotisserie chicken from the store and pull the pieces off, that's fine. You can boil a chicken, a whole one, you can boil pieces. What I like to do to save a lot of money is to either use chicken legs, chicken thighs, or chicken quarters such as this. I think this whole pack costs like $2.40. Alright, so the other good thing is I'm going to make mine today in the Instapot. My chicken pieces are frozen. They're right out of the freezer, and that's what makes the Instapot so great is when you don't have time to thaw something out, you can put it in frozen and still cook. We're going to cook the meat in the Instapot, and I'm going to cook the broth on the stove, and then we're going to incorporate the two together. Like I said, it's frozen, so you have to work with it. This mixture of seasoning I'm putting on it, all it is a little garlic, a little salt, and a little pepper. And I have my rack for my Instapot in, and layer the chicken in the pot, just like that. Take your chicken broth. You can add about a cup. You can also add water. It doesn't hurt anything. All it is for the steam. Move it over to your Instapot. Seal your lid. Turn your valve to not steam. You want it toward the back instead of venting. You don't want it to vent. You are going to press poultry, and that is as easy as it gets. While our chicken parts are cooking in the Instapot, you can go ahead and get everything else prepared. Now I'm chopping about 5 stalks of celery. Chop it relatively small. Some people don't like to really crunch into celery when they're eating anything, so I try to keep it pretty small. And I'm going to cook this down for a long time. So basically in mine it just cooks away to nothing. And I do like to use the leafy part of the celery. I like to use that in gravies too. It just makes it taste really good. I cut up a full onion, a yellow onion. And watch your fingers as you finish that off. So what you're going to do here is you're going to take your onion and you're going to add it to a large stock pot. And take your celery and do the same thing. At this point, I add just a little bit of olive oil, just so I keep the bottom from burning. I turn my stove on to about medium-high, and I let those begin to saute. Now, when I say saute, you're going to want to cut the temperature down after the oil starts getting hot. And what you're going to cook it to is just to the part where the onion starts to look transparent. You don't want it to be completely transparent because it's going to simmer in your soup and it's going to keep cooking. But for right now, you just want to soften it up, both that and the celery. So, as you let that start, I'm going to show you my other ingredients. Now this is a cheap dish. This is a really, really big dish. I mean, it's going to fill this pot to about that deep. So if you don't want to make near this much, just cut everything I'm doing in half. The other thing is chicken and dumplings will last in the refrigerator, and my kids will warm it up at night for snacks and things like that. The only thing you have to remember is when you put it in the refrigerator, because the dumplings are made out of flour, they're going to absorb some of your liquid. So when you put them in a cereal bowl or whatever to warm them in the microwave, add a little bit of water or a little bit of chicken broth to them to reconstitute that soup texture, so that you're not eating just dumplings. I don't make my own dumplings. My sister-in-law Wanda, who passed away a few years ago, she taught me this when I first married into the family. She taught me to go buy these frozen dumplings, marry these. The package, a full pack, is probably too many. So every pack I usually split in half. Let me go ahead and give this a stir and turn it down because I can hear it sizzling. And you don't want it to burn, you just want them to start to get soft. That's all. Okay, so anyway, Wanda said, you know, don't mess with dumplings, just buy these. This is what I do. And I was like, oh, okay, because, you know, I'm a little bit nervous about making dumplings. Sometimes they stick, that kind of thing. My grandma made great dumplings, but I never did get her recipe for them. And that's a shame, but I don't have them. These run you about $2 a pack. Your chicken's running you about $2 a pack. And then your cream soups. Most of the time I buy the large family size, but right now we have to take what's at the store. And all I could get was the small ones. So I would probably use all 6 of these. And if it's too thick for you, you just add more chicken broth, you add more water. So this recipe, you're going to tweak to your liking, okay? While this is starting to soften up, I want to remind you that if you are in a pinch, you can buy frozen onions already cut up and keep them in your freezer. Frozen onions or frozen bell pepper are always in my freezer because you don't want to get home and realize you don't have a fresh onion. Or your onion has, you know, molded because it's been there too long. You will always have those in your freezer. The bell pepper, I buy probably 10 bags at a time and keep them in my freezer just so that I always have that kind of thing on hand. I like to use fresh, but honestly where I live, I'm not going to make a 30-minute drive every time I need a bell pepper or every time I need an onion. So having those on hand in your freezer will help you out a whole lot if you're coming home from work and you don't have time to think about all of those different things. The dumplings, like I said, I use half a bag, so just put the other half in a Ziploc bag and they'll keep, so you'll get to make 2 pots out of those, no problem. This are chicken bouillon cubes. And they're cool because they're going to give your soup a real chicken flavor. They're condensed chicken seasoning, and I use them quite a bit in all my soups. I buy beef, vegetable, and chicken bouillon cubes. Again, because when there's a problem and you can't run to the store, you at least can make a meal out of these things really quickly, and they're really tasty. They do have a lot of sodium, so you will tweak your salt according to what you like. Okay? Alright, so starting to soften up. If you can see here, I'll walk that over. It's not that they're completely cooked. They're just starting to soften up. Okay? And that's what you want. And take the remainder of your chicken broth and add it to your stock pot. You can also boil a full chicken on your stove and save that broth from your chicken and make the entire soup out of it. But because we're doing this at the same time and I'm not going to render a whole lot of chicken broth off of those pieces, we're going to use chicken broth instead. Grab a knife. I always throw in about a half a stick of butter. This is not a healthy dish by any means, but it is very rich and it'll go far. I usually serve it with biscuits and a salad, but most of the time no one ever gets around to the salad. Alright, so take your little bouillon cubes, throw those in. And then you're going to start opening your cans. I like these little pop-top cans. That's really nice to have instead of always having to get a can opener. You'll add each one of these cream soups, and I have 4 cream of chicken and 2 cream of celery. Because I like the taste of celery, I prefer to have at least 2 cans of that. Some people don't, and if you don't like it, just omit it and put cream of chicken. And you know what cream of soup looks like. It's really thick. So for the first few minutes, it just looks like blobs floating in your soup. But as it warms up, it will dissipate and it'll become really creamy. It looks like a lot of soup, but it really isn't. These are tiny cans. My favorite memory of this is taking this to Life Group, and my friend Amy Turner wanted the recipe, and it was so hard for me to give it to her because I usually don't have anything written down. I do what I think looks right and what smells right. And so when people really nail me down for a recipe on the fly, I'm lost. And as all the other videos, this recipe will be at the bottom in the comments. Okay, so now that that's incorporated, you're going to just let that simmer for a little bit. We're back. Our chicken is completed in the Instapot. Put it out, let it cool. Don't try to take it apart right now. The broth that was in the bottom of the Instapot, save it. You can skim off any little bits or pieces that come off the chicken, like skin or little tiny bits of bone. Scoop it up with a slotted spoon and get rid of it. But keep that natural broth and add it to your soup. Okay? Now also, we're going to add poultry seasoning. I add about a teaspoon of this, and this is really good for chicken gravies, giblet gravy at Thanksgiving and Christmas time. It's also the seasoning I use to put in my dressing. So it gives the soup a really nice flavor. This is 1.5 teaspoons of black pepper. And this is about 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. And you can use less. If you're not a huge garlic person, go ahead and cut that down if you like. Stir that around. Okay, we're going to turn it on to low. You really only need it low because these are heavy and they fall to the bottom. These are frozen. They're going to come that way from the grocery store, and sometimes when they thaw a little bit on the way home and then you put them back in the freezer, they're hard to get apart. So if they're tough for you to snap apart, put them in the microwave for about 30 seconds. I break mine in two because I don't want them to be a full one and stick. It's harder to serve. It's harder to get it up with a ladle if they're too big. And if they fall apart or they crumble, it doesn't matter. They cook just the same. So if they're still a little frozen, you can pop them back into the microwave for a second or two. And you're just going to keep doing just as I'm doing, just pulling them apart, just like that. As soon as the frost starts to melt, they come apart easily. Like a whole strip that big, I like to pinch it apart. Now the trick with these dumplings are, you've got to be patient. As you're stirring, if you feel them stick at all to the bottom, the knee-jerk reaction sometimes is to, I'm going to throw those in for another couple of seconds. Your knee-jerk reaction is to scrape really quick, like, oh, I've got to hurry because they're burning to the bottom. Don't scrape them. Don't. If you think that they're stuck, simply get another stock pot out, pour your dumplings into a new stock pot, put it back on the stove, and clean the other one up later. Resist the urge to scrape that bottom. You will not be happy. It'll really ruin your whole pot of chicken and dumplings if you're scraping off burn off the bottom of your pan. And you really can save them. If you're quick about it, you just put it in another pot. I've done it a million times with that, or with pie fillings and stuff, such as things that are heavy. Milk, flour always wants to go to the bottom. So as you're putting those in, stir them around to keep them from sticking to one another. And you're going to just continue to do that until you have all of your dumplings in. Now it'll be up to you how many you want to use. I prefer not having too many dumplings because when I warm them up the next day or in the next week, they're going to be really thick. They're going to continue to grow. So for me, I use a little bit less. If you think that your pot's going to get eaten all in one day, then go ahead and use as many as you want. It's really for the warm up that I avoid using too many dumplings. But this is a nice thing to have. If you don't want to come home and make dumplings from scratch, this works so well. I get many compliments on the dumplings, and I have to say that they're not mine, but that's okay. I don't mind using shortcuts at all. I'll go ahead and break those in two. I put them in one at a time for a reason. If I was to put them in all at once, they would clump all together at once. If you put them in one piece at a time and stir them around, they're going to stay separated. Alright, so here we go, one at a time. And I put them in different parts of the pot so that they all have their own room. This is a great dish if you're having a church social, or if you're going to a potluck, holidays, sadly funerals, things like this. If you're going to take food to someone that it's like on a food chain, that if they're in the hospital and they're requesting food, this is a great one because they can use what they want and they can come back later and use the rest. Okay, stir those around, and then you're going to put a lid over that and kind of tilt it so a little bit of the steam comes out. And you're going to come back to this like every 5-10 minutes, and you're going to stir. And if you stay on top of it, you won't burn them. But if you get away from it, like I said, put them in another pot and you're going to be fine. We'll come back in a little bit to peel our chicken when it's cool. You don't want to put your chicken in with your dumplings because by the time you're done, your chicken has separated too much. You still want it kind of chunky in there, so leave it till last. We've been cooking our chicken and dumplings for 35 minutes on a very low temperature, and we've been stirring frequently to keep the dumplings moving, keep them from sticking. In the meantime, I've deboned our chicken, and we're going to, you don't want it chunky. You don't want it in smaller pieces than that because it will start to fall apart. It'll get stringy. So add your chunked chicken to your soup and stir. Now, with this completed, the dumplings are going to look like that. You can see that. The soup is medium thick. This is where you can play with it. If the broth is too thick for your liking, add some more chicken broth and stir. Even water will work. If you like it thick, that's fine. But remember, when you put it in the refrigerator and when it cools down, your liquid is going to absorb into your dumplings, making it almost no broth. And if you get to that point, just add more water and add more chicken broth if you have it on hand, and it'll reconstitute your soup again and you're ready to go.